Good morning. Welcome. I'm so happy to be here this morning. I know we missed last week, but it was a holiday and it was Labor Day. And I hope everyone had a great day. I know I did. I had a really good time with some family and a brother that was in town. So we actually got together for a barbecue. And it was great because I had quite a few people out. I love to entertain. And the ribs were quite the hit because I got one. But we had some really awesome fish because the day before, my husband and I, I think for the first time we ever went out on a boat in the Sound here in the Pacific Northwest. And I was the only one that caught fish out of a boat of 4. I'm like, okay, this was pretty cool, but I should have taken pictures, and I don't know why nobody did, but my fish were only this big. They were silvers. They were wild caught, or wild ones, I should say, but yeah, I had to let them go. But we did bring home. Someone graciously gave us a really big silver to bring home, and it was wonderful to put that in the oven and get it done and have some really great fish. So that was really a lot of fun. I would like to go do that again. I really miss the ocean and the beach because I grew up in Coos Bay, Oregon, and I really love that. So today is my continuing education to learn more about essential oils and what they can do for you and your family. And there's so much information out there about essential oils anymore. We have so many tools. We have research at our fingertips, right? We can find pretty much anything we want to find. But how do you know that the information you find is true and accurate? That's a tough one. So it's really a good thing to research the essential oil company itself. What's the integrity of that company? What are they doing? What's the research that they're going through? And that's the biggest reason why I fell in love with doTERRA, because they are involved so much with research in itself, because they know that there has to be, and there is a great need for essential oils that are really pure and potent, and that and making sure that that you're getting the oil that it says on the bottle. Because the FDA does not regulate essential oils, that particular statement is really, really tough to really know what you're getting in that bottle. Even though it says 100% pure on the bottle, does not mean that that's all that you're getting in that bottle. There could be other things in the bottle. In fact, in California, and I'm not sure, I got to do some research on this, there was a Proposition 65 that there's a possibility of lead exposure with essential oils. Now, I don't know where that came from. And someone asked me about that, and it's like, well, I do know that doTERRA double checks and triple checks to make sure that we don't have any contaminants in our essential oil bottles or with our essential oil. So I'm very curious as to where that came from. So in the future, I'll be doing some research and we'll let you know really what that's all about. Or if somebody does know what that's all about, would you please inform me, because I would like to know. So doTERRA is highly good as far as when it comes to the integrity of the product. I came from a dental background of 30 years, and even though I'd heard about essential oils and you see them on a shelf, I really didn't know much about essential oils outside of, oh, they smell good, right? Some of them, but not all of them smell good. And I have my nose is very sensitive. Not sensitive to that I'm going to go sneezing or I can't be in the room with it, but if it's a heavy perfume, especially coming from that dental world, there are some of those women that would come in and have this really potent, heavy, fragrant perfume on them, and it would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm wearing a mask, because it was so potent and so pungent that it just didn't even smell good to me. And so when I started my research and learning more about essential oils, I was introduced to them. It was like, after learning all these things, like, people need to know. So that's where this continuing education came from. I want people to be educated because that's knowledge. And knowledge gives us power. Because without that, we're nothing. We are our own advocate. We have to be understanding of our body and know what we can do for our body. Okay? And yes, we need doctors. Yes, we need our medical supplies. But there's also can be another side to help your body. And sometimes it's a very simple thing, and sometimes it's a very difficult. So let's look at the alternatives and see what you come up with. That's the most important. And there are 3 ways to use essential oils, because they're aromatic compounds that come from plant matter, all plant matter. That's seeds, bark, roots, fruit, flowers. You know, those are the main things, and resin. And then when you are looking at an essential oil as to what do I do with it? How do I use it? And which way would I use it? So the first thing is you can just take an essential oil, take the lid off and smell it. That's the fastest response you can have. Then you've got topical. Topical application is, where does it hurt? Where do you want to put it? And or do you want to smell like it, or you don't want to smell like it, right? Some essential oils are great as a perfume, and some of the blends that you put together are great as a perfume. But if you really think you need an essential oil topically, but you don't like the smell so much, put it on the bottom of your feet. It'll get where it's supposed to go. I think that's great, because that's our biggest pores, and all of our reflex points are on our feet. So you can't miss. So then the third way is internal use. Now this is something where there's a controversy here as far as internal use. You have to make those decisions whether or not you decide to use an essential oil topically. Always read a label first. doTERRA is really good about that. They put a supplement fact on the label that actually tells you you can put that in water or in liquid. It'll tell you 1 drop in 4 fluid ounce of liquid. That tells you it's meant for internal consumption, so it meets the GRAS standard, which is generally regarded as safe for consumption. So that gives you a really good, in your mind, so that I know I can take this internally. Whether you just take it straight out of the bottle, or you put it in a capsule, an empty capsule, and take it internally that way. Okay, options, right? All about options. And that's exactly what this is. So I wanted to talk about Immortelle. This is an oil that I really haven't talked about much. And this is a blend specifically from doTERRA. And there are several essential oils in this particular oil. And those oils are, frankincense is the #1. Oh my gosh, frankincense is good for so many things. Sandalwood, okay? And typically it's Hawaiian sandalwood, which there's a little bit of difference in the regular sandalwood. Lavender, myrrh, helichrysum, and rose, okay? All of those particular oils are like your heavy hitters, okay? It's like hitting that home run. This is an oil that is packed full of essential oils that are good for many different uses. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it specifically as far as the blend goes, but then I'm going to tell you, we're going to go into each individual oil a little bit. I don't have time to go into every one in depth, but I do, and I can give you a little bit of information on each one. And that's what I want to help you with. And when it comes to emotions of essential oils, oh my gosh, we're going to touch that just a little bit. And I think I'm going to do my plan is to start doing a little bit more about the emotional side of essential oils, because I really don't think people get the full benefit when they think about essential oils. They only think about, aches and pains like muscle aches or respiratory things like this. So what about emotionally? How do they help you with that? So we're going to talk about those. We're going to have like a little series about that. But first, let's talk about the Immortelle in itself. So the Immortelle is a blend. It's called the anti-aging blend, and that's for a reason. So this particular oil was used for the wrinkles around the eyes for women. It's a really good product for that. But what a lot of people started doing is they were like saying, oh, I started using this Immortelle and my eyesight got better. Well, why would it help your eyesight get better? Interesting question, right? So we'll talk about that. So it's a soothing blend to maintain the skin, okay, for its health and vitality. It's been studied for the abilities to reduce inflammation. So eyesight sometimes has a lot to do with inflammation. And it helps protect the skin from UV radiation. And it promotes healthy cellular function and proper hydration of the skin. So putting it around the eyes, oh my gosh, where else could you put that besides the eyes? Frankincense is like the ultimate when it comes to helping the skin. It's an anti-inflammatory that you can't get much better than that. And when you give your body things that can help it heal, then what will happen? You never know, because every individual is different. So what really helps you may not help me, but it might help the next person. And so that's another thing you have to really think about is, what is best for me? Do I get the results that I want? Or am I kind of getting what I would like to see or happen, but I'm still not where I want to be? Try more. Or try combinations of different essential oils. Now, the reason why I like the Immortelle so much is because of all the heavy hitters. This is really good for wound care. Even in your animals, it's not invasive to the animals. It is something, now cats are a little bit different story, so I'm not going to say too much about the cats outside of, you're going to use, this has already got a mixture of fractionated coconut oil with it already. And you should, for a cat, you can put a little tiny bit on the wound if you need to. Now, there are controversies that say lavender is not something you should put on your cat. But here's where I feel, because I do a lot with animals in general, you have to assess the situation, okay? What is that animal going through? Is that animal suffering? You're not going to kill your cat by a very minimal or very very low usage, okay? That's something that it requires education. You have to educate yourself. Find somebody that you know that is really good at what they do and has a lot of knowledge in these fields so that you can find out more about what you can or cannot do. Because if you're just starting with essential oils, there are do's and there are don'ts, okay? More so don'ts for you than someone that has been around a little bit longer and understands the chemistry and the properties of essential oils and what you shouldn't do with them or what animals you wouldn't put certain essential oils on, okay? So please always educate yourself more. All right. So it's good for, we know it's good for the skin. So it's a great heavy hitter for the wound care, chapped skin, cracked, dry skin. You know, how many of you know someone or yourself how the tips of your fingers are really bad and they're really dry, or maybe the feet, especially those people that go barefoot a lot. and they have really dry, cracked feet, this Immortelle is a really good product to help in correcting that problem, okay? So I already know it's good for wrinkles because that's what it was created for in the first place, right? And you would apply it directly to where you need it, or because this is not a blend to take internally. This is only meant for topical use or aromatic use. Okay, and we'll get into that aromatic a little bit more, because that's going to get us into the emotions a little bit. And so when you think about how it can revitalize the skin, right? And so it's good for that wound care and promotes that healing process is what it does. So it helps, it's a benefit to the body because you can heal a little bit faster. Sometimes though, you want to look at the situation. You may not want to heal it too fast. So depending, there again, assess the situation, okay? So let's look at each individual oil that's in the Immortelle. And by the way, if you wanted to use this or have some of this available, like if you have livestock, or in my case, I do. I have the horses, I have cows, I have chickens, I have dogs, cats, I have all those. You could take part of the bottle, put it in another bottle so that you have it as part of your emergency kit. Because this is, like I said, a heavy hitter. You can use it on everything. If you don't want to use an oil, then an option for your animals and yourself for wound care is Correct X. We've talked about that before, and it's an ointment, and it's the equivalent of your Neosporin, but it's everything in a salve, and it has frankincense and the lavender and Melaleuca and cedarwood. So there again, you have to assess your situation. What do you have, and who you're putting it on, right? So that's an option. So let's go into these oils. So I have a whole lot of arsenal tools. So I have a smaller book, Essentials. Okay, it's Essentials of the Earth. Okay, and this is through my oil, or excuse me, it's oillife.com. And then I also have a book called, this is a really good version to take around. It's not so big, but the Modern Essential book. You can get this at aromatools.com. And then I also, once we get into the emotions, we're going to get into this book. This is the emotional book for essential oils. And I love this book. I love it when I can reach out and tell someone that I think this is your oil, and pick something else, let them read it, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's telling me. But there's other ways to do that too, but we're not going to get into that. And I love it when they have spouses that say, yeah, that's totally them. Fun. Okay, so the first oil in this blend is frankincense. So know that when you read an ingredient list, even at the store, the very first one is what that is made of most. So it's in order of most down to the least, okay? It's the same thing with an essential oil blend. So you know the majority of what's in that bottle is frankincense. Okay, then what's the second one? The second one is going to be sandalwood, right? So it goes on and so forth. So if you read the list on the bottle even, it tells that in order. And frankincense is first, Hawaiian sandalwood is second, lavender third, then you have myrrh, helichrysum, and then rose. Okay, so rose is the very last one. So what does frankincense do? Frankincense is good for wrinkles, good for the skin, it's an anti-inflammatory. So when you think about frankincense as being the king of essential oils. And if you're religious at all or not, you all heard the story of Jesus Christ and the three wise men and what was given to him. Frankincense was the very first thing they talk about, frankincense and myrrh, right? So myrrh, why, right? So if you start understanding what essential oils are all about, what frankincense represents, then you kind of go, oh, that makes sense. but they brought it from where it came from, where it originated from. You could get frankincense where they lived. So this was something that, again, it was pure essential oil, and it was something good for not only the soul, but good for the skin. Good as, I mean, it was a sign of wealth, okay? So what else does it have? So the properties of frankincense are, it's an analgesic, it's an antidepressant, it's antifungal, and we know, already said, it's anti-inflammatory, it's antiseptic, it's an astringent, it's also like a sedative, okay? It addresses so many different things. It addresses things like bronchitis, asthma, a cold, a simple cold, or the flu. It helps with that. It helps with wound care. It helps with scars, if you have scars. It can also help with a sore throat. I'll put it on topically. Because, you know, this, we're talking about frankincense. You can take it internally. If you get the right frankincense, you can take it internally, okay? So Tara's frankincense is amazing because there really truly is a huge difference between what we have and what a lot of other companies have. Keep that in mind. It's also good. It's extremely good for things that are neurological. So if you have that fogginess going on, think about using frankincense or just Immortelle, okay? All right, so we're not going to go into all of them extremely because we don't have the time in this. I wish I did because we'd be here for hours. I don't think you can listen to me for hours, but maybe you do. Maybe some of you. I know I wouldn't want to listen to myself for a couple hours. Okay, so what's the next one we have in there? Myrrh, right? So if myrrh, frankincense and myrrh were given to the Christ child, right? So what was significant about myrrh? Let's look it up. Myrrh also is one of those that come from a tree, and I've got it here somewhere. I have too many tabs. Okay, so myrrh is also a resin, just like frankincense, right? And it's another one that's an analgesic. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, astringent, decongestant, and it can also be a sedative. So that's very familiar, almost the same as frankincense, but a little bit different. So when you start getting into the chemistry of each one, and you look at the actual amount of compounds of each one, then that's where it starts getting a little bit different, and that's where it starts, for me, that's where it starts getting really interesting, because some people have said, well, it sounds like every oil will do the same thing. Yeah, you're right. They do. They will help no matter what. But what is different is the compounds within the oils. What are the properties, the constituents in the oil? So if you're looking for something to lower blood sugar, okay, what is the compound that will help reduce blood sugars? Linalool. So if you look at that, which essential oil has the highest amount of that particular compound? That's what you look for. And so cinnamon. Cinnamon's the highest. There are other essential oils that do contain that particular compound, but they're not, it's not as high. So that's where you start getting into the differences of your essential oils and start looking at easy for us to be able to use something. Okay. And plus we have all that research. Remember I said we have so much research that we can do on our fingertips? Okay. So myrrh can also address those cuts, that wound care, problems with the mouth. Myrrh is extremely good for those problems, along with clove, but your mouth issues. hemorrhoids, indigestion, stomach ache, or if you have a yeast infection. All right, how many women out there that listen to this, how many of you have gotten a yeast infection in the past? Really don't like it, okay? So our next one, so that's myrrh. And then we're also going to talk about Hawaiian sandalwood, okay? So sandalwood in itself is, Hawaiian sandalwood does come from Hawaii, okay? We can no longer get it, and we no longer get it in a as a single, but we do get it as a blend. And so we're just going to look at what sandalwood in itself does, and how it helps us. So sandalwood, actually, okay, so here it is. Here's another one that's antibacterial. It's an antidepressant. It's an antifungal. Anti-inflammatory. There's that anti-inflammatory again. Antiseptic. And it's disinfectant. It's an expectorant. It's a sedative. It's a stimulant. And so when you start looking at that, what does that help with? It can help with acne, okay? There again, the skin. What about respiratory issues? It can also help with candida. And it can also help with skin issues, obviously. And another one there for yeast problems, so yeast infections. I think, so if you start seeing a pattern of all of these essential oils that are in this blend, you'll understand more of why this is such a heavy hitter and why this is such a wonderful essential oil blend that can help you with a lot of things, right? It can go into different categories. And so what are some of the other ones? You know, so we look at lavender, and lavender is your like your Swiss Army knife, as I've heard. And really, truly it is, because it's good for burns, it's good for calming, it's good for the skin, it's good for wound care, it's good for so many different things. And so when you are, you know, when you start looking at these essential oils and you're understanding it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's totally crazy, right? So no wonder people were having eyesight change and get better with the use of this particular essential oil. It was a daily, everyday oil that they were using. Totally understand that. And so when you look at some of the other essential oils in this blend, like rose, let's look at rose, because rose is, we just started getting rose as a single oil. Love that idea that we get the rose, because rose is like, it's another heavy hitter, right? And it's also another one that's antibacterial, but it's also a great antidepressant. It's anti-hemorrhaging, anti-inflammatory, anti-spasmodic. So let's go back. Hemorrhaging. Bleeding might be something worth looking at if you're like Helichrysum and itself and rose are really good for that. So those people that are getting bloody noses or things like that, use Immortelle, or just roll it over the nose, and it'll help stop that bleeding when they get those. You know, and then it's look into, why are you getting nosebleeds all the time? You know, what's the triggers, or is there something that you need to do surgically? So please check with your doctor. That's when we need our doctors to diagnose us, right? If they can. It's also an astringent. It's also a laxative. It helps with digestive disorders. It can help with for us women. It's really good for that time of the month, for those menstrual cramps that we get. And if you know someone that has had a baby and they have postpartum depression, rose is really good for that. So here's another option for them to rub on their belly for all of those nice scars that we get. Those stretch marks, to help reduce those stretch marks because of the frankincense and the myrrh and the lavender. But when you start adding rose in there, it'll help in battling postpartum depression. So that's something to really think about, that benefits are amazing for the women and our children, okay, that we have just delivered, or even prior to delivery. It's still something that we could use, because none of these essential oils are going to be invasive to our fetus, okay? So that's a very interesting one when you think about that, and who do you know that could benefit from that. Now, I said that we would talk a little bit about the emotional side. These are all the physical properties of an essential oil, but what about emotions? How do we trigger the responses up here in the brain, okay, that memory center? And and did you know that essential oils can get through the blood-brain barrier? They can. Frankincense and myrrh, there's a number of them that can and do. And so when you smell an essential oil, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that reminds me of grandma's house. Oh, it reminds me of when I went to the ocean. Whatever it reminds you of, but it might remind you of something bad, not something good. So there's another little trigger, as I'll call it, that you want to be aware of. Because if you can smell something and it brings you to a negative state of mind, that's where we want to help in getting you through that process of elimination. But how do you get rid of that negative emotion? Because even though you think you have forgotten about it, or that you've forgiven someone, or whatever the situation, you still have that little closet door that you keep shut. And because you keep it shut, our emotions eventually can play a role in our physical ailments. I know that sounds kooky, but it really truly is. And in fact, my mother told me a story that I had never heard before about someone she knew that was so sick. He was mentally, emotionally made himself sick from stress because he didn't like his job. I was like, really? I've never heard anybody go that extreme, but I imagine there's a lot of them that are that extreme, that they just do not like their situation. They're always in a negative emotion, and so they really, truly make themselves sick, or they are diagnosed with a major illness later on. So this is something where if you, especially if you go to the doctor says, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, because you don't have enough symptoms, but you just feel like something's wrong, but you cannot put your finger on it, start thinking about finding someone that can help you with your emotional state. You may not think about it. You may think that, oh, there's nothing wrong, or there's nothing, but really find someone that could help you find out if there is anything out there, a life coach, for instance, or someone that's intuitive, or card reading. I don't care how you feel or where you go, but there's a lot of people out there that can help you in trying to get through the emotional process. So let's look at Immortelle on the emotional side of essential oils, because this is the anti-aging blend, but it's also the oil of spiritual insight. And that spiritual insight can be our heavenly presence. You know, what's our spiritual reality like? Do we have a presence with God? So essential oils, we know, in meditation, they're used all the time. A lot of times in prayer or some spiritual worship is where you would find a lot of your essential oils, especially in biblical time. Not as much now, except for when you get into specific religions, who still today use a lot of the essential oil aroma. So the anti-aging blend is a power of high vibrational oils alongside grounding oils to assist the connection between spirit and body, heaven and earth. That's a powerful statement. in itself. Because vibrational oil, who's ever heard of that? Since when does an oil have a vibration? So I'm going to help you with something to look up or do some research on vibrations of oils or symphony of oils. You're going to find a wealth of information because it's how the body responds to essential oils. But that vibration, if you stand still, I challenge you to do this, stand still. How much can you stand still? Are your arms, fingers still have that little vibration? The essential oils connect with that. You can't stand still. I mean, it looks like you stand still, right? But there's still a vibration that's going on. And so when you think about that and you're doing meditation with essential oils, it really helps in getting that emotions out and letting them go and getting that connection. And with all of these different essential oils, it helps us get out of those negative emotions, that dark side of the soul, and that spiritual disconnect. We want to reconnect. And maybe we feel like we're burdened or discouraged. You know, Immortelle is something that can help us get out of that and bring us back to that hope and that spiritual transformation and get back into the faith or the trust of things that go on around us, the trust in the divine, and that there is a higher consciousness and that we can benefit or with that we can get over that hump of that negative emotion. It's not an overnight thing. It's something you've got to work on over and over and over again because it's going to take time. Totally take time. And I'm really, when you start looking at the research of essential oils and the emotional side of essential oils, it's totally amazing. Totally amazing. And when you can wear like wild orange and change someone's mood just that quick because you smell good, right? It's an uplifting, especially citrus, it's totally uplifting to most people. And so when they smell it and they can go, oh my gosh, it smells so good, and it just totally makes their day. That is amazing. So when it looks like you are, down and out, or you have a lot of physical problems going on, and you're just not, just not quite there, the doctor is not quite sure, maybe you're on all these different medications, perhaps it's time to look at an alternative. Perhaps it's time to look at your emotional state and see if there's something hidden that's in that closet that you need to unlock the door and let it out so that you can totally let your body go, relax. Okay, it's gone, totally gone, right? But it requires someone to help us with that. It really does. And there's many, many, many modalities of that kind of help. I really, really love how emotions can be put in check with using essential oils. Okay, just using them aromatically, diffuse them in your home, put them by your bed, put them on your feet, put them behind your ears, wherever it is you want to put them, right? So that you can have a better connection and a better life. Because that's what this is all about. This is all about helping you find alternatives to helping you with health and wellness and what are the options. And we have so many modalities out there anymore that can help us. Essential oils are just part of the problem or part of the package. And when you look at all the other modalities like acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, the list goes on. And what are the ones that you are going to benefit from the most? And it may take more than one. I love chiropractic because For me, it's important because I was diagnosed at age 12 with scoliosis. I'm never going to get better, but I do have essential oils to help me with that. And I do have chiropractic that will help me. And I have massage also that will help me in keeping my muscles relaxed. So find those things that are helpful for you. Have a foundation of good health, because good health is important. And it's not just all about this and all about the modalities. What are you doing for you? Are you sleeping well? Are you exercising at all? Are you getting out, at least walking 10 to 20 minutes? You know, even if it's just once a day, that's all you need. Okay, get your body moving, get your heart pumping. Okay, if you can do that. If you can't get out there, maybe you're in a wheelchair. Can you move your arms? Okay, obviously if you're in a wheelchair, you probably can't move your legs very well, but what can you move? What part of your body can you move? How are you going to get that exercise? Tell yourself you can. Don't tell yourself you can't. That totally changes your world. And do one step at a time. You know, I know an MS patient, or person, I shouldn't say patient, that totally made his world better when he did his research. And he couldn't walk. And they literally told him he would be in bed the rest of his life or in a wheelchair. He didn't take that for an answer. And his name is Raymond Garcia. He does have books out there, and it's called No More MS Depression. And there's 101 and 102, and he's getting ready to release his third book. And he is on Amazon, so look that up. It's got an amazing story. And an awesome person that said, I will not be in bed the rest of my life. I will not be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. And I, you know, what is it, 11 years later? And he was completely homeless. He is now has a job. He's been running for an office, political office in his state, which I think is amazing. And he works out every day. That's where his job is. Where he works out. He helps other people work out. I'm like, that's amazing. And he still has MS, okay? But he refused to let it get the better of him. And sometimes, yes, that doesn't happen to all of us. And sometimes, no, it's not going to be that way. But at least try. You have to have, it's all here, the mindset. What's your mind like? How can essential oils help you in creating a better world for yourself? So thank you for joining me today. And for those of you that are listening to the replay, thank you so much for listening to those. And I enjoy being able to educate you. And if you have something that you would love to share with me, or maybe you have some great information that you'd love to share, please let me know. You can email me at heavensent, S-E-N-T, oil@gmail.com. You can also opt into a live and the replay links to your phone, directly to your phone, and you would text the word at Heavens Oil to 81010. So again, 81010, text the word at Heavens Oil. And we look forward to talking with you again next week. And enjoy your week. And next Monday, I will be coming from you live from Utah. And next week is the doTERRA convention. Doesn't start until technically doesn't start until Thursday, but we'll be in town on Tuesday, and then Monday we are going to be at a vacation spot. So I'm looking forward to that, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.